Very good afternoon, members and friends, professional friends. I am CSR Venkatramana, Council member and Labour Law Task Force Committee member for the year 2025. Now, I extend warm welcome to all participants and our esteemed speakers, Sandeep Nagarkar sir, on this 8th series of webinar, Master Knowledge Series EEE 6.0 on topic of the Code on Labor, the Code on Wages 2019. Friends, as all you are aware that the four labor codes have consolidated 29 legislations such as wages code and industrial relations code, occupation safety health conditions code, and code on social security. And the Ministry of Labor has notified on 21st November 2025 all these labor codes, and 29 central laws were subsumed by the courts stand repealed. Now, friends, the courts have required both the central and state 28 state governments to promulgate rules under the each courts for their effective implementation. And there are two important points to note here, friends. One is any employment arrangements that conflict with the courts are now invalid regardless when they were established. And the second important thing is, as per the Section 24 of General Clauses Act and corresponding sections of in each of the four courts, the rules under 29 legislation that were consolidated into courts will now continue to apply insofar as not inconsistent with the courts and until such time as they are superseded by the new law. And an important thing to note here is professionals have been given a lot of opportunity under these labor codes, and the ICSI is trying to equip all our members and strengthening the capabilities of all our members on the labor codes. As a key managerial personnel interested with ensuring legal and regulatory adherence, company secretaries are expected to guide boards and management on policy alignment, employment, contract restructuring, payroll governance, statutory disclosures, internal controls, and risk mitigation arising from labor law legislations. As you all, many of the company secretaries, even handling the portfolio of HR, they are required to learn the labor code and guide the management on the labor code compliance. And friends, as you are aware, Section 205 of the Companies Act holds the responsibility and the duties on the company secretary that they should ensure the compliance of all applicable laws. So it is very important for all of us to learn about this labor codes. The main important points I would like to learn. Anyway, sir is here. He will take you to the run through the complete details about the codes. But two important points I just want to highlight here. The definitions, there has been uniformity. They tried to brought uniformity in the all over definitions across all the laws, and the employee and worker definition has been given a wide ambit to include supervisor, managerial, administrative, and extend to senior management employees. And they have been introduced a redressal mechanism. And as you are aware, the ICSI has one elective paper of Group 2 in the professional program, that is 7.3, for the students who wants to opt the labor law as a specialization. And the ICSI has also constituted Labor Law Reforms Committee, last task force, Labor Law Task Force for last 2 years. Even Sir was part of that committee, and he contributed a lot to strengthen to design the publication. And one important thing we want to highlight is in the last year 25th Corporate Governance Awards. On 19th December 2025, ICSI has come out with a publication navigating the labor codes. And this publication is available even in the e-court. So people who are intended to take up may buy this publication. Friends, before I'm going to introduce Sandeep Nagarji, I would like to state that the comprehensive understanding of key provisions and recent developments and implementation of challenges, practical compliance strategies under labor codes enables the company secretary to effectively support the organization in navigating and evolving the labor law landscape while promoting responsible corporate governance and sustainable workplaces. So it is a right time for us to learn more about the labor codes and to understand the law in a proper manner so that the implementation will be effective. Now we will start with the introduction of the speaker. Mr. Sandeep Nagarkar sir, he is a fellow company secretary. He is a qualified commerce graduate and masters in law, and he is a practicing professional since 2011 with corporate experience of more than 20 years. He is a key speaker at workshops, seminars organized by ICSI and various other professional platforms, authorized various articles on labor laws and a book on code on wages. His competencies include advisory execution support under industrial labor laws, representing clients before Labor Law Commission, PF and other government authorities. So we welcome the speaker for this eighth webinar, and I will be more confident that we are going to enhance our knowledge and understanding on more about these labor codes, and we will be working as a guide and strategist for implementing these labor codes in our day-to-day activities. Now, sir, I request you to take it forward this session, and whatever queries coming in, I will be taking up at the end. In between, if you can take any questions coming up on the
Yes,
screen, we will take up. If you are
not an
okay
issue, not
with
an
it.
issue. Yeah, I'm okay with it. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. We
thank
welcome
you.
you once again. Please
Yes,
go ahead with your presentation.
yeah, thank you for your opening remarks. That was very useful to set up the right tone for my presentation. Thank you, Mr. Venkatraman. Thank you. So
Yeah.
I will share my screen. Is this presentation visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. So good afternoon, friends. So we are here, to see the highlights of code on wages because the central rules which were long awaited and they were finally published on 8th May 2026. So the rules are now there, the substantial law is there, the procedural law is also there. So now this is the right time to implement the provisions of code on wages. So during my presentation, I will cover important aspects or highlights of the code on wages. So if you have any question, you can ask me in between. But I prefer to take questions at the end because I have received few questions today. Most of them I will try to answer during my presentation, but if not, we will certainly take up at the end. Okay, thank you. So before we begin, let's understand background in brief. Why this law? See, this law we are listening to this that labor law is going to change, or there will be reformation in the labor laws. So this journey was started in the year 2002, wherein the Second National Commission they have suggested that the labor law should be grouped into 5 categories, and these are the 5 categories like code on wages, code on social security, code on occupational health, code on industrial relations, and then we have these law now in place. But this day today we are seeing it is the journey of more than 22 years. It took time, to have this labor code in place. But if you see why there is a need for reformation, because we want to, the labor laws were made typically keeping in view the meal worker way back in the year 1948. Immediately after the freedom, the laws were passed to protect the interest of typically meal workers. So we have payment of bonus, payment of wages, minimum wages act, gratuity act, maternal benefit act, so on and so forth. But if you see the today's need, the labor code is mainly focusing on IT, ITA sector as well as unorganized sector. So the traditional laws were in place, they were covering only the organized sector of the industry, wherein which contribute only to 10 to 15% of total industry. But now this labor code, they are focusing more on unorganized sector as well as organized sector. So they try to cover more and more employees under the labor code. And the other intention, to rationalize the law, to streamline because there are certain provisions in the old labor laws that will become outdated. So we need to remove those provisions. Okay, then there are few topics that we need to amalgamate and simplify the compliance under the labor laws. So there are three pillars for this labor law compliance. One is a employer, other is a employee or their union, and third is the government. So employer in simple word means the person who pay wages or who exercise control and supervision. That person is called as an employer. Employee means who works for hire and reward. Okay, and they have power, of collective bargaining. So they demand for good working conditions. So their union is there to put forward their demand. And government role here is, to pass the legislation and to ensure industrial peace. So these are the three pillars mainly impacted by the new labor code. So now we have labor code on these important topics called industrial relations, code on wages, code on social security, and code on occupational health and safety. So these are the four code. Now they are in place. So this is the brief background why we have this labor code in place. Journey so far, if you see about it, on August 26th, code on the wages is the first law in the past in the year August 2019. Then on September 20, we have other laws like code on social security, IR code, occupational health safety. And these code were made effective from 21st November 2025. So except PF provisions, barring the PF provision, the substantial law is already in place. So they are made effective by way of press release dated 21st November 2025. Recently, final central rules are notified on 8th May 2026. And few states, they have also issued draft rules, and they will be finalized in the month of June. If we are talking about Maharashtra, they have issued the draft rules. Now they will be finalized in the second week of June. So now the machinery is ready, the officers are ready, the authorities are ready, employer, employee, all the pillars of the implementing agencies, they are ready. So now this is the right time to initiate compliance under the code on wages or other applicable code. So the state rule will be notified in near future. Until then, like this is a transition period of May and June, we can follow the provisions of old labor laws to the extent they are not inconsistent with the labor code provision. So this is the journey for the labor law reformation. Straight away, I am jumping to the important provisions of the labor code and main codes. Before that, we will understand the common salient features of all the labor codes. The first is uniformity in wages. So, I remember my days when I'm pursuing LLM and I took labor law as my special subject, and we used to have, plethora of wages, various definition of wages. So Minimum Wages Act, there was a different definition. PF, there was a different definition. ESIC, there was a different definition. So each act was having different definition of wage. So for few act, it means basic plus DA. For other law, it means gross. For other law, it's only basic. So there was a lot of, there was no uniformity in the definition of wage. So this is the first point aimed by this reformation labor law, that is bringing of uniformity in the concept of wages. Now, if you see the four code, the definition of wage is same in all the four code. So they have divided the definition of wages in two parts, inclusion and exclusion. And the inclusion part, that is the basic part, should be 50% of the gross pay. So what I will explain during the course of my presentation. Then another important aspect about is a complete web-based platform. So all the filing, registration, inspection, calling of information will be done through, online. That is, web-based inspection will be there. So we did not maintain any physical copy of the register or return. All will be handled by web. So there will be inspection, audits, filing of returns, maintenance of registration. All these compliance aspects will be handled web-based. Compounding offense, another important aspect of this labor code is that uh, if there's a default, the authority will give you chance to rectify the instances of non-compliance. So here the intent of lawmaker is not to punish you, but give you all possible opportunity to make the non-compliance good. So by paying compounding fees, you can rectify the instances of non-compliances. And they have introduced new concept of employees like gig worker, platform worker, or fixed term employees. So the gig worker, platform worker means they are we are using the services of Urban Clap, Swiggy, Zomato, Ola, Uber. There are various platforms available in the market. So the employees or the freelancers typically, they are these people they called as a platform worker, and now they will be brought under the bracket of social security in the form of they will get provident fund, they will get ESSC coverage, they will get insurance coverage, they will get bonus. So the percentage might be little different, but today they are not covered by any law. Like the person who deliver food to our doorstep, or the person who who carry the passenger from one place to another place. These typically drivers, these people, guys, they are not covered by any law. Now they will be covered under the concept of code on wages. And fixed term employee, this is a new concept. This was there in the industry standing order, but that was not used by many industries in the past. So fixed term employee means the person, wherein the end date of contract is mentioned in his appointment letter or employment contract. For example, we appoint Mr. X till the period 2028, right? So that contract will be called as fixed term contract. And these person, they are entitled for gratuity if they are providing services for 1 year. Now, this media, or there are YouTube influencer, or there are various platforms used by many professionals, and they're harping this news that in the market that if you work only for 1 year, you are now entitled to gratuity. But this is completely not true. The old provision is still continue to get the gratuity, to obtain the gratuity, to eligible for gratuity, you must provide service of 5 years and more than that. But if you are working on a fixed term contract, wherein your end date is mentioned in your employment contract, then and then only you are entitled to gratuity for 1 year, right? So please try to understand that. Please verify the provisions of the law. Do not go by the uh, posts that have been viral on the YouTube or Instagram or various other platform. So we need to see the basic because they post this to increase their views, to increase their subscriber, but they are not knowing the correct provision of the law. So here we are the professionals, we should know what exactly fixed term contract means. Okay, so these are the common salient features of all the labor code. I will move ahead. Then inspector cum facilitator. Earlier we used to have inspector. Now their term is changed. The designation is changed, called inspector cum facilitator. Their job involve, inspection as well as giving consultation or advice to the employer and to the employee as well. Please note, they are also authorized or empowered to support employer and employee as well. So employee can approach the concerned inspector cum facilitator if he or she has any concerns or challenges, they can approach him. And compounding, as I mentioned, like code permits compounding of first offense by paying 50% of the maximum fine. This is also allowed under the labor code. So these are the salient features of all the four codes. Code on wages, here see this the objective of this code on wages, to simplify and consolidate the law relating to the wages and bonus. So code on wages typically deals with the payment of wages, minimum wages, payment of bonus, then equal remuneration. All these aspects will be handled by code on wages. It received assent of President on 8th August 2029, and the rules to implement central rules very specific to implement these are recently notified on 8th May 2026. So briefly about the code on wages, this act is to amend and consolidate the law relating to the wages. And so there are various law: payment of bonus, minimum wages, payment of wages, equal remuneration. So all these four acts now subsumed in code on wages. So this is called consolidation of the labor laws. Now, this act mandates specific guidelines for salary composition. So what should be the code on wages is very impactful act because it deals with the salary and the pay package of all the employees. So all industries, whether they are employer or employee or advisor or consultant, they are keenly interested in the provisions of code on wages because that is affecting their labor cost. So this act specifically mentioned that what should be the percentage of basic. Till 21st November 2025, there was not any cap on basic salary. So we used to have basic salary 25%, 30%, 40%, or in few cases, it was already there of 50%. But now from 21st November 2025, we have to have basic salary at the rate of 50%. So I will explain while going further. Now it extends to whole of India. And this is applicable to all employees. Mark this word, all employees, irrespective of their wage limit and type of employment. So the code on wages is applicable to all employees, like whether you are manager, supervisor, whether you are drawing X number of salary. So earlier, if you see the earlier labor law provision, bonus act was applicable if you are having basic less than 21,000. ESSA will be applicable if your gross is less than 21,000. PF will be applicable. So there were limits prescribed under the wages law. Now these limits, these ceilings were removed by the code on wages and is made applicable to all the employees irrespective of their grade, designation and salary. So slowly they will notify. Now we are awaiting central law rules are in place. So state rules will be published soon, and then will be have full-fledged law to enforce the provisions of the labor code. And as I mentioned in my earlier slide, now this will be completely technology-driven act. So inspection, audit, compliance entirely will be handled by the way of technology. So this act provides for the payment, fixation, and component of minimum wages. So the first and foremost important point guaranteed by this code on wages is right to payment of wages, that to minimum wages, and on time wages, on timely payment of wages. One is every employee has a right to get minimum wages. Number two, he has a right to get timely payment of wages. So seventh day is prescribed under code on wages to make payment to all the employees. It also provides mode of payment of wages. Like nowadays, no one pays wages by of cash. Gone are the days where used to pay wages by cash. Now cash payment will be treated as bogus payment. So cash payment is certainly not allowed. So wages can be paid by check by crediting the amount to the account of the employees. Then wage period can be by day, by month, by week, or fortnight. So there are different type of wage period that has been defined under the code on wages. There are timelines. Timeline, as I mentioned, seventh day is the day for making payment for the monthly employees. That also prescribe procedure for deductions from absence of duty, or deduction for damage or loss, or deduction for services rendered, or deduction for recovery of loan charge. So they have given a prescribed process how to make deduction from the salary. So the first point, that what is salary, they have defined what is minimum wages, then they have defined when these wages shall be paid, and if at all you want to deduct certain amounts from the salary of the employees, what is the process, what is the due process of law that one has to follow before making the deduction, that has been certainly given under the act. And this act also provide essential elements relating to wages, equal remuneration payment, payment of bonus. So bonus again is a very important and very sensitive part in the industry. So how the bonus should be calculated, how it should be paid, who all are eligible to get the bonus. So all will be clearly mentioned in the code on wages. So I'm going to give more time explain these provisions during next 30-45 minutes. So I'm going to focus on these compliances under code on wages. Any doubt so far? Any question? Shall I pause for a minute or shall I go ahead?
Sir, we have not received any queries, so you can
Okay.
go ahead. We'll take
Yes.
up all the questions at the end.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. So, as I mentioned, the Act provides for graded penalty. So, another important impact of this labor code, they have increased the penalty by 10 times. So, this is very because the law should be not barking law, should be biting laws. So, whatever penalty was there in the old labor law, now it has become 10 times more. Suppose the penalty was 500 in labor code, the penalty has become 5,000. Suppose the penalty was 5,000, it become 50,000. So that way they have increase the penalties for various non-compliances under the labor code. And secondly, they have decriminalized some offenses, like they have reduced the term of imprisonment, but they have increased the fine or penalties under the code on wages.
Sir,
Now, yes.
Sir, one small question even I am getting. This compounding process, whether it is similar like to the MCA process, like making a petition application or
Yes, sir.
also
Yes, sir. Yes, they have given a format of the application. So we have to file a application, and then the officer will call for necessary records, and he will give us an opportunity to correct the non-compliances. And by paying the compounding fees, the instances will be rectified.
because even under the act, when we are paying 1,000 rupees more, whether it will be disqualified for even the appointment schedule 5, all these questions will come now.
Yes, yes, yes. Correct, correct, correct. Yeah. Shall we go ahead?
Please go ahead, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Now, this is very important, like definition of wages. As I mentioned, the most debatable topic in the industry, like what is wages, what it includes, what it excludes. So I'll try my level best to clarify the concept of wages. So see, this wages means the total remuneration, and there are two parts like inclusions and exclusions. So in inclusions means covered means included all salary component expressed in terms of money are capable of being so expressed and includes. So wages means all allowances and also includes basic pay, dearness allowance, and returning allowance. So the basic wages or minimum wages are declared by the government from time to time. Then returning allowance, typically it is applicable to seasonal industries which work only for few months in a year, like sugar factory. For example, they operate only from October to March and they close for another year. So they have to retain their employees. So they pay certain amount to their employees because they need such employees in the next year. So they pay that amount. That amount is called as a retaining allowance. Only these are inclusions under definition of wages. Now, what it excludes, you can see on the screen: bonus payable under any law, conveyance allowance, house rent allowance, overtime allowance, commission like sales commission, house accommodation, and related services like light, water, medical, value of travel concession. Then some paid to different specialists. So these are the negative list, or this is called list of exclusion. So exclusion list they have clearly defined. Inclusion they have mentioned is all components of salary, will be considered as basic salary. So that is the inclusion, there is the exclusion. Whatever not covered in the excluded list or in the negative list will be considered as inclusions. I repeat, whatever not mentioned in the exclusion list or negative list will be form part of inclusions. Then there are certain other exclusions like provident fund or pension contribution, remuneration payable under any award or settlement, gratuity and retrenchment compensation. So if you are asking a employee to leave or you are retrenching your staff, you are laying off your staff, so you have to pay 15 days wage for such outgoing employees, and that compensation is called as a retrenchment compensation. So that is also not part of wages. So now left hand side inclusions, right hand side exclusions. And there is one more concept of wages in kind. That is, if you are making payment in kind, like in the form of car, a cell phone, or car lease, or meal coupons, the value of such wages in kind should not be more than 15% of wages. So what is exclusion? That 50% of total remuneration. So while calculating the 50% cap, we should not consider gratuity and retrenchment compensation. So except gratuity and retrenchment compensation, all the exclusions shall be capped at 50% and basic is capped at 50%. So total will become 100%. Now, again, I will clarify what is included. Inclusion means, see this here, like inclusion means emolument that is universally, necessarily, ordinarily paid to all across the board shall be included as qualifying wages. So whatever you are paying universally, necessarily, and already to all your employees. For example, many companies use the word special allowance, other allowance, management allowance, or by whatever name it is called. So if you're paying that allowance universally, necessarily, and ordinarily, that will be included in the basic part. Okay. Number two, exclusions. Whatever is not payable by all concerns or may not be earned by all employees of a concern is excluded from the qualifying wage. So what is not paid to all across the board? Such amount, for example, joining bonus or loyalty bonus, for example, any incentive which is not paid to all employees, which is paid only to the selected employees, or which is based on their targets or based on their performance, or a variable pay, which is not paid to all the employees. Okay, so such called as a exclusions. So exclude any incentive wage from basic wage if it is direct nexus and linkage with the amount of extra output and vice versa. So if you are paying performance bonus, if you are paying incentives, if you are paying any amount as a award, as a reward to your employees, which is directly connection with the output, then that part will not be form part of a qualifying wage. It will be excluded. For example, if you are paying rupees 5,000 as a performance bonus to all your employees, now this performance bonus will not called as exclusion, it will be part of inclusion because it is universally paid to all the employees, right? So likewise, we have concept of reimbursement. Now reimbursement made to different special expenses arising out of employment, like transport or conveyance or any reimbursement like medical, whatever, So if you are they are supported by some invoice bill, and then it will not be considered as qualifying wage. But if you are paying any reimbursement ad hoc, universally, ordinarily, necessarily to all the employees, that will be considered as wage. For example, if you are paying uh, telephone expenses as 3,000 rupees to all the employees, and there is no bill, there is no supporting. Now this telephone bill is not a reimbursement. It will be considered as wage. But if you are taking so for example, if you are paying medical based on the bill supported by your employees, then that will be considered as reimbursement. So whatever is supported by document policy will not be considered as will be considered as reimbursement. So we have to have clear-cut rules or regulations for monitoring these payments. So in the absence of this, it will be very difficult for us to justify to the authorities. Again, moot question like how to design CTC. What is the impact of this new definition of wage? So while designing the CTC, design compensation structure largely between explicitly included and explicitly excluded components. I will just go back. What I here mean, like you have to focus on this covered and excluded portion. So covered your CTC only on these components. Do not add or ad hoc any expenses or income in the salary structure. So here I mean like so you should learn the definition of wage and consider the inclusion part and exclusion part. Okay. Then ensure bonuses are not part of employment contract. Suppose you are paying 1,000 rupees as a bonus to all the employees. Again, as I mentioned, this is not bonus. This is a allowance. So, but if you're paying bonus only at the time of Diwali to the eligible employees, that will be considered as exclusions. See, I have seen the list of the negative list or excluded list. and we have very limited scope for designing the salary structure. So we have to use HRA and conveyance allowance to the extent possible, because other component, they may or may not be applicable to all industries, like commission, overtime, they are not. So our structure should be basic salary, then HRA, then conveyance, and whatever may be industry specific allowance that can be we can have there. But this is the only scope to design the salary structure. So we have to use, so now HRA can be 50% of your basic salary. Conveyance can be, as per the grade of the particular employees. So we have to have a conveyance policy. We have to have, that compensation and benefit structure in our HR manual. This is very important. Minimize the component not mentioned in the definition of wage, like special allowance. So that they have given the list of inclusion, list of exclusion. So we cannot add any allowance into that. If we add any allowance, that will be considered as basic salary. So please remember. And if we add this, like for example, we add special allowance. Now the special allowance will be considered for calculating all the statutory payout, like provident fund, gratuity, maternity benefit, leave encashment. So this, you can have special allowance. I'm not saying you cannot have, but try to keep this amount on minimum side, because this will be considered for all the statutory payment. Then minimize the reimbursements. So because you have to have some document, some SOP in place to monitor your reimbursements. Again, we have to modify our leave policy, because state, as mentioned by sir, like, labor is in concurrent list of constitution. So both central and state law have power to make laws on this. So leave policy will be governed by Shop and Establishment Act, as well as on Code on Wages or Occupational Health and Code. So we have to see these compliances and then accordingly make our leave policy or modify our leave policy. Yes, for the benefit of the participants, I have designed this slide, what it includes and what it excludes. Quickly, I will go like basic pay. Whether including wages, yes. Excluded from wages, no. Considered in total termination, yes. Like, so this is the definition of wage, which I have mentioned, like, so I have, bifurcated the definition in various components, and whether it's a part of wages or whether it's not a part of wages, and whether it's considered in the total remuneration. So this is how we should consider the definition of wage. Now, if you see reimbursement, like medical reimbursement, for example, whether included in definition, no. Excluded from definition, yes. Considered to definition, no. Leave travel allowances, universally payable. See this. If you are paying leave travel allowance universally to all the employees, it will be part of wages and it will not be excluded from the definition of wage. Like reimbursement for books, magazine, food coupon, travel, entertainment, broadband, mobile phone. So if you are having supporting for these kind of reimbursement, please remember they are not part of wages and vice versa. One-time payment like joining bonus or notice pay buyout, it is not paid to all the employees, it's paid to selected employees. So they are not included in the definition of wage. Now see this. How wage is defined now. For example, basic pay is 50 rupees. Excluded allowances, like we have seen the excluded list, is 50. So gross wages become 100. So wages as per code will be 50. So this is the ideal situation, expected by the lawmakers. Number two, basic pay is 25 and excluded allowances are 75. Now see, the exclusion portion are capped at 50%. So 25 rupees shall be deducted from 75 and shall be added back to the basic. Now thus the basic will become 50 rupees. Case 3, very exceptional case, but this is also possible. Now already you have basic salary more than that, more than 50%, like 60. So here the wages as per code will be 60. So this is how they are expecting your salary structure. Now let's see CTC model before and after the code. Before, on left hand side, so we can have 40% as our basic, the HRA can be 20%, then PF will be 12% of basic salary, and other reimbursement, like, they are 35.2%. So this is the model before the code. Now after the code, now we can have basic at 40% and special at 10%. Now see this, the wage will be basic plus special allowance, so that become 50%, and thus the other allowance will become 50%. Now HRA can be 50% of basic, PF will be 4.8%, and the other bracket, the balancing figure, will be 25%. If you see the impact, it is on that, adjustable, uh, flexible benefits. Okay. So before the code, it was 30.52. After the code, it became 25.2 because we have to add special allowance into the basic, because we need to have basic at 50%. Now, impact on statutory payouts like PF. So there are two options, like, we can deduct PF on actual basic, like, it can be any amount like 25,000, 30,000, 40,000, whatever your actual basic, we can deduct that. But that will certainly, impact the take home salary of the employees. So if employees are okay with that, we can continue with deducting PF on actual basic. But my suggestion, my request would be, we can still follow the threshold limit of 15,000 rupees. So there is a news that this limit will increase to 25,000, but it is not yet enforced by the authorities. Well, still today we can follow the limit of 15,000 for deducting the PF. Now there will be a question from the participants, or I got these questions from various other platform. Like, now earlier we were deducting the PF on actual basic. Now can we go back and deduct on 15,000? The answer is yes. But you can take later from the concerned employee saying that earlier my PF was deducted on actual basic of say 25,000. Now I request management to deduct payment on 15,000. So that is doable. Okay. Now ESIC, major impact on ESIC, because earlier we used to pay ESIC contribution on gross salary of 21,000. Now it has become basic salary. So more and more employee will be covered under ESIC. Here, the intention of lawmaker is to give social security to all the employees who are deprived earlier from the ESIC benefits, and they are also strengthening the infrastructure for the ESIC. So new hospitals are set up in various regions, and they are ready to provide more benefits under the, like, sickness benefit, medical benefit, cash benefits, various benefits enumerated in the act. So they want to pass on these benefits to the eligible employee under the ESIC Act. Bonus, code has not defined any amount, but we can continue with the old threshold of 21,000. So if your basic is less than 21,000, you will be covered by the Payment of Bonus Act, and you have to make provision for that. Gratuity will be paid on revised basis. Earlier, the basic will be 40%, 25%, and 30%. So we used to calculate gratuity on last round basic. Now it will be on 50% basic plus any allowance which is paid universally to all the employees, like special allowance in our case, that will be also considered for payment of gratuity and leave encashment. Similarly, leave encashment will also be considered on basic plus any allowance paid across the board. And maternity benefit, it will be reduced. Earlier, maternity benefit used to pay on gross salary. Now there is some relief to the employer. Maternity benefit will be paid on the basic, calculated at the rate of 50%. So this is the impact on statutory payouts by this new definition of wage. Yeah. Now there are certain procedural part of the law, like, prevention of discrimination of the on the grounds of gender. So this act, they brand gender parity. There should not be discrimination on the basis of sex, like male and female employees. Now female, even they can work round the clock and any occupations. So they have given complete freedom to the female employee as well, so that they can earn more and more income. They can go for more opportunities. Earlier, when we studied this labor law, the provision was like female cannot be employed after 7 p.m. or before 6 a.m. That was the need of that time, but gone are the days. Now they can work around the clock. So the code prohibits gender discrimination in the matter of wages at the time of recruitment, transfer, and promotion, we cannot discriminate among the employees if they are performing the same work or similar work. So if their qualifications are same, if their experience are same, so we cannot discriminate on the basis of sex. So here work of similar nature is means like, the skill, effort, experience, and responsibility is required are same. So if you are doing same or similar work, you should get same salary. Now, in order to pay equal wages or equal remuneration, you cannot reduce the salary. For example, my salary was 15,000 and there was one female, whose salary was 12,000. So they cannot reduce my salary to 12,000, right? Then earlier, when we say you have to pay equal wages or equal remuneration, what people used to do, they used to pay only basic salary. They used to keep basic at the same. For example, 15,000 basic salary to all the, to Miss A and Mr. A. Okay. Now, this is not allowed. You have to consider other allowances as like conveyance allowance, HRA, amount payable under awarded settlement, and overtime payment. These payments shall be equal to the concerned male or female employees. Okay, we cannot pay only basic and finish up the matter. No, are not allowed. You have to consider other allowances as well. So you have to give, equal package of salary to male employee as well as female employee if they are doing same work or work of a similar nature, right? So, but there are certain restrictions where women cannot be employed, like cotton opponent, for example, So there, if there's a prohibition by law, by operation of law, yes, we can restrict that. But there cannot be other discrimination like marital status or sexual preferences. Now, they have given opportunity to transgender as well. So we can hire transgender as well. So to have this, the company should create a policy called equal employment opportunity policy, and they should, they should they should prohibit discrimination on any ground while making the recruitment or while giving the promotion or transfer from one place to another. So this is the provisions of the law for promoting the gender parity. Now, minimum wages, as I mentioned, employers to pay. The minimum wages are declared by the government from twice in a year. So now they have defined minimum wages for various, sectors in India. So under the code, the minimum wage will be fixed by primarily taking into account skill and geography. So now the minimum wages will be decided by taking the skill, like highly skilled, skilled, semi-skilled, and unskilled. Okay, and geography, where your company is situated. So only these two factors will be considered for paying the minimum wages. Third, minimum wage will be revised after recruitment because the basic salary will be revised after 5 years, but the DA component or variable dearness allowance will be adjusted after periodic revision of 6 months. Now, presently we are getting DA amount in every January and July, but from this enforcement of code, we'll get in April and October. So these are the 2 dates where they will give the revision in the minimum wages. Now see this, as I mentioned, this act is applicable not only to the employees of organized sector, but to the employees of unorganized sector as well. So more and more employees, my guess is a 50 crores more employee will be covered under the code on wages. So government will also consider the skill of worker, geographical area or both, and in certain cases, working conditions like temperature, humidity, hazardous occupation or process or underground work. These factors will also taken into account while deciding the minimum wages. So they have given what is the component of minimum wages, why they decided. So they have considered roti, kapda, makan, fuel. These are the basic necessities of every individual. So, for example, they have considered standard family of 4 members. They need 2,700 calories per day per unit. They need 66 meter clothes per year per standard family. The nature can be 10% of food and clothing, fuel, electricity. In short, they should get such amount in their hand to live a standard life, to live a decent life So that should be their aim. At least any person should get roti, kapda, and makan. So that basic necessity should be fulfilled by getting the minimum wage. So there is also right to sustenance. This means that every worker get minimum wage to increase his purchasing power. So if his purchasing power is increased, there will be growth to the economy as well. Now, how these wages will be calculated? So they are defining per day rate. So if we divide by 8, we'll get per hour rate. If you multiply that rate by 26, we'll get rate per month. So government is giving us rate per day. So we can convert into per hour or per month as the case may be. So this is about basics about how government is, deciding the minimum wages for the employees. So earlier there was a schedule of employment and there was skill set. 1709 was the employment and there was 2000 minimum rates of wages. Now all these are removed by the code on wages and they have made it very simplified. Now government will decide national minimum wage or four wage, so it will be applicable to pan India and government cannot fix the minimum wages below the floor wage. For example, tomorrow government has decided 20,000 as minimum wage. So state government cannot decide the wage below 21,000. It can be 21,000 or more than that, but certainly it should not be less than the national floor wage. As per geography area, they are divided into three parts: metropolitan, non-metropolitan, and rural area. So these are the rates of minimum wages will be defined different in metro, different in non-metro, and different in rural area. The minimum wage decided by the central state government must be higher than the floor, as I mentioned. Now, assume for a moment, presently the minimum wage in any state is 20,000, and national wage is decided at 18,000. Now you cannot reduce your state minimum wage to 18,000. Okay, you have to continue with the current minimum wage, which is more than the national minimum wage. Yeah. So minimum wages will be notified by the central and state government, and this will be based on time or number of. So there are two types of minimum wage: one time rate and piece rate. So piece rate is based on the article produced. So that has to be.
Sir, some of the participants are telling you're going little fast. So
okay.
Maybe the coverage is more, so because of the time you may be going fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I will slow down. No problem. Okay. Now, in the existing minimum wages by the central state government, so as I mentioned, they cannot reduce the minimum wage. So the time for interval. So now, presently, we are having minimum wages in January and July. Now, from this effective of this code on wages, it will be 1st April and 1st October. So now we'll get two rates during the year. One is rate is declared on 1st April, other is on 1st October. So we have to adjust our basic salaries based on the revised minimum wages declared by the government from time to time. So it will be different for different states. So one has to follow the national minimum wage as well as the rate decided, minimum wage decided by the respective state government. Yeah, they have also decided the number of hours of work which constitute a normal working day. It is 8 hours per day, including the rest interval of 1 hour. So the spread hour shall not be more than 12 hours. Spread hour means the commencement of one shift and commencement of the second shift. The time lag between these two should not be more than 12 hours. That was the mean. Weekly day, they are mentioned one weekly off during the week. So that can be Sunday. Normally can be Sunday. It can be any other day for working 6 days working. For companies which are working for 5 days, it can be Saturday and Sunday or any other day you can choose, not necessarily, but they are mentioned normally it will be Sunday or Saturday and Sunday. And overtime shall be paid if the employee work on the rest day. For example, if I work on Sunday or if I work on Saturday and Sunday, which are my weekly off, so I should get overtime payment for working on this weekly off. The longer wage period for the purpose of minimum wage will be month. So there are different wage period like per day, per week, fortnight, and month. So what is the longer wage period? It will be a month, like 30 days or 31 days, as the case may be. Overtime, as I mentioned, the central and state government will fix a number of hours, like 8 hours. So if somebody putting more than that, 9 hours per day, if you are putting, 8 hours, more than 8 hours, or more than 48 hours per week. So all these extra hours put in by the employee will be compensated by the overtime payment, and overtime payment shall be at least double than the normal rate prescribed under the act. So we have to pay overtime at double rate. Now, double rate means, now here the wages mean basic plus DA. So I will get double of that amount. Suppose my basic is 100 rupees. Now if I'm performing overtime, I should get 200 rupees. So that is the concept of overtime payment. If you put work beyond 48 hours or beyond 9 hours per day, that is the case. Now, wages for employee who work for less than a normal day. For example, employee leaves early, or then he will is entitled for full day wages. So, if there is a unwillingness on the part of employee, then he is not entitled to any wages. Or if the employees are agreed to work on part-time basis, then only he is not entitled to full-time wages. Barring these two exceptions, you are entitled to full payment of normal working day. Okay. Now, if you are working for two or more classes of work, for example, you are working part-time in A factory and part-time in B factory, so you will get the minimum rate applicable in the particular industry. If you are working on a piecework basis, like rolling of cigarettes, rolling of bidis, or rolling of agarbattis, there are certain industries which work on piece rate basis. So, and piece rate is not defined by the code, then you will get time. You get rate as per the time. So, as I mentioned, the normal working day is 8 hours, and with one or more intervals of rest. The working, see, as I mentioned, that the spread over between the day should not be more than 12 hours. And if somebody work on the rest day, he's entitled for the overtime rate. And if you're working in night shift, so many companies, they are paying night shift allowance because it's very odd working hour. So night shift starts, the holiday for night shift will start after the midnight. So rest day for the whole day means period of 24 hours, consecutive hours beginning from the time when the shift ends. So he's entitled for complete rest of 24 hours at the end of its shift. So this is the provision for minimum wage. Now payment of wages, as I mentioned, there are certain provision how wages shall be paid. So they can be paid in coins, currency notes, by check, or by crediting to the bank account, or through electronic mode like NEFT, RTGS. These are the various mode employed by the employer to make the payment. Okay, now the currency coins, they are outdated, but still the provision is kept in the act. So many companies now paying the salaries by crediting to the bank account of the respective employees. And the payment can be made on daily basis, weekly basis, fortnightly basis, and monthly basis. So depending upon of your nature of employment, you will get salary accordingly. Payment to wages to contractual employees. Suppose you are hiring contract labor, so you have to make the provision as per the provisions of the code. Like, you have to make the payment at the end of day, at the end of week, at the end of fortnight, or before 7th of the next month. So there is no difference between regular employee and contractual employees. But we have seen in the industries, contract labor, they are exploited by various industries, to prohibit that, exploitation of the contract labor. They have made this provision that you have to pay wages to the contract labor as if you are paying wages to the regular employees. Deduction, as I mentioned, we can deduct the amount from the salaries, and these are called authorized deductions under the Act. One is fine for omission or misconduct. Then if you remain absent from duty without permission, or if companies provide you the accommodation, or if you obtain advances from the company, these are the, or income tax, provident fund, ESIC, profession tax, LIC payments, they have given a list of authority deductions under the section 18 of the Code of Wages. So these can be deducted from the salary of the employee. And if you want to deduct any amount, you have to take, other than this, if you want to deduct any amount, you have to take permission of the concerned employee. Number one. Number two, these all deductions should not exceed 50% of employer's total wage. This is a condition they have put. Earlier it was 1/3, but now they have put a condition of 50%. They cannot exceed 50%. Now, if you exceed 50%, you can recover them in the installment. Timeline for payment of wages, like daily basis at the end of shift. If you're having employee on weekly basis, on the last working day of the week, that is to say before the weekly holiday. Fortnightly basis before the end of the second day after the end of fortnight, and monthly basis before the expiry of 7th day of the succeeding month. Earlier, if you're having less than 1,000 employee, we can make payment on 7th. If you're having employee more than 1,000 employee, the 10th was the day for making the payment. But now they have made one uniform date, like 7th day, irrespective of number of employees engaged by you. So if you fail to make payment by these timelines, there is a default under that. And very debatable provision in the code on wages, like if a employee has removed or dismissed from service or retrenched or has resigned or terminated, the wages payable to him shall be paid within 2 working days of his removal, dismissal, or retrenchment. So there was very debatable point at various conferences, workshop. They are asked us to how it is possible to pay, how is possible to complete his full and final within 2 working days. Now you have to pay, mark the word, they have said you have to pay wages within 2 days. So we have to pay wages within 2 days. That wages mean earned wages. The gratuity or the performance bonus can be paid at a later date as per the policy of the company. So gratuity can be paid within 30 days. Okay. Other performance bonus and other payments, leave encashment will be paid as per the policy of the company. So whatever his earned wages, that has to be paid within 2 days. Now, employee has put resignation, say, on 1st of May. Okay. So there's a 30 days notice. So what is his last working day. So you have to initiate the exit process accordingly. And on or before 2nd June, you have to make his payment of earned wages. That is what expected by the lawmaker. But there was various reaction now, how it is, because the concept of handover, there's a concept of KT, knowledge transfer, handover formalities, there's a concept of they have to deliver the laptop and ask it to return to the company. So once the employee put the paper, you have to initiate all this process. Or you have to create a document mentioning that we will process your F&F within 2 working days, subject to 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have to mention that you have to return the assets, you have to return the information, you have to complete the KT. So all these terms and conditions you should mention in your HR manual, employee handbook to process this full and final within 2 days. Now this is possible if you are having less employee, but it is not possible to process this F&F within 2 days if you're having 1,000 or 5,000 employees. So there's a solution for this, like you can have 10th, 20th, and 30th day. So employee can resign accordingly so that their salary will be processed on 12th, 22nd, and 2nd of the next month. So accordingly, you have to design policies and process so that there should not be default under the compliance in this labor code. Now there's a process for this deduction that we are making from the salary of the employee. See, salary is a very sensitive part. Even if you deduct 5 rupees or 500 rupees, employee will approach the HR and will ask for what is the reason why I'm getting less salary in my hand. So we have to follow the due process before making any deductions, or you have to have documentary proof why you have deducted amount from the salary of the employee. Like recovery of dues. In case where the author deductions exceed 50%, the excess may be recovered from the wages of the succeeding wage period. So you have to give them the installment, like, for example, employees taken advance of say 50,000 rupees. Okay, so that can be recovered of installment of 5,000 for next 10 months. So create a document, make an entry in the register, so that will be very easy. Now, if employee is absconding and he's not there to perform his duty, is absent from duty, then you can make deduction for his absence, but you have to give intimation to the inspector within 7 days of this deduction. Suppose you made a deduction of say 1,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees, whatever may be the amount. Then you have to file one intimation letter to the inspector and facilitator. He will check or verify that your application, and he may take action against you if he feels that there is a default on your part. So any action will have impact. So we have to be very careful while making deduction for such misconduct on the part of employee. The deduction for damage or loss, again, we have to follow the principle of natural justice. Before making any deduction, we have to give notice to the employee and ask him to show cause why should not deduct this amount from his wages. Then the value of the loss or damage shall be equal to the value of damage cost or loss of goods interested to the employee. So you have to create a proof, like what is the value of the asset, to the extent what is it damaged, and why they should not deduct this amount from their salary. So we have to give this communication in writing, electronic or hard copy, as the case may be, to the employee. Give him an opportunity of being heard so that he will give you necessary justification, and then you can deduct this amount. Then condition regarding recovery of advances. Now, suppose you are giving advances. Now, suppose employee transfer from one city to another city. For example, employees transfer from Bangalore to Pune, and you are giving some advance for relocation. So if you are paying the advance before the employment, that can be recovered from the first salary. But the other allowance, as I mentioned, that can be the amount of installment, again, should not be more than 50% of the total wage. And there is a separate register for this. So we have to make entries in all those registers. As I mentioned, we have to give opportunity of being heard to all the employee to provide the explanation. And all these deductions and realizations shall be separately recorded in the register maintained for that. Deduction for recovery of loans. So government will decide the amount of loan and rate of interest to be charged for the loan to be given to the employees. So soon this will be clarified by the government. Very important deduction for fine. Suppose you want to impose a fine, for example, 3 late sittings, 3 late marks, or there's a damage, or there's a misbehavior. We have given 27 instances of misconduct. Now, you want to impose fine for such misconduct. So there is a process, for deducting this fine. So I'll explain point by point. One, no fine shall be imposed on an employee for this action omission with the previous approval of the approved government or such authority as we prescribed. So before imposing fine, you have to give the list of action omission to the government and seek their approval. Number one. Then notice of such action omission shall be displayed in regional and English language on the premises wherein the employment is carried on. Then before imposing the fine, again, they are going by the principle of natural justice. We have to give opportunity of being heard to the employee before levying the fine, before imposing the fine. Then employer to give intimation writing to employee and ask him to submit his explanation within 7 days. For example, you want to impose fine of rupees, say 2,000 rupees for employee for not using the personal protective equipment. So you have to give him the incidents. You have to give him time of 7 days to submit his reply. Now, if he agrees, or if on establishment of charge, the fine can be imposed on the delinquent employee. Now, if we do not receive any employees within 7 days, then we can go ahead and impose the fine on the concerned employees. Now, please remember the total amount of fine may be imposed. It can be 3% of the total wage. Okay, so maximum amount of fine can be levied, that will be 3% of his total wage. Then no fine shall be imposed on an employee who is under the age of 15 years. No fine shall be imposed on an employee shall be recorded by an installment. So fine has to pay in one stroke, in one installment, and it can be imposed after 90 days from the date on it was imposed. So we have to recover the fine within 90 days. Then every fine shall be deemed to have been imposed on the day of action, omission, inspector was imposed. Then all this fine and realization shall be mentioned in one register, and they should be applied for the welfare of the employees. So earlier, now today we are transferring these fines and their relation to the Maharashtra Labor Welfare Fund here in Maharashtra. So now we can stop that practice. So this fund will be collected and that will be used for the benefit of the employees. Okay. So the total amount of fine which may be imposed in which period shall be equal to 3%. So I'll already cover this point. Deduction for services rendered. So we can deduct certain amount for the amenities like flat or driver or gardener or any amenities that you are providing to your employees. We can certainly make deduction for such services equivalent to the value of their services. Now, another important aspect of payment of bonus. Yeah, now eligibility for bonus is 21,000. So all employees whose basic is less than 21,000 is covered by the statutory bonus. So employee has to put 30 days in the accounting year, that is from April to March, to get eligible for this bonus. So there are two rates of bonus. Minimum is 8.33% and maximum is 20%. So bonus cannot be paid more than 20%. So we can have bonus linked to the productivity or output of the worker or employee, but it cannot be more than 20%. So we have to maintain four registers called A, B, C, and D. So A and B, they are basically competition of bonus. So for example, we have to derive the gross profit. From there. We have to derive the depreciation, the income tax, and certain other amount mentioned in the schedule. Then we'll get available surplus. So 60% of that surplus will be allocatable as a bonus. So that the list of the employees that can be maintained in Form C, and Form D is nothing but the return for the bonus. So there are only 4 forms under the section called bonus. So if you maintain this, there is sufficient compliance under the Act. So we can pay bonus across the board, no issues. But if you are making bonus to the employee whose basic is more than 21,000, don't call it as a bonus, call it as a ex gratia, because bonus it can be claimed as a statutory right, but ex gratia cannot be claimed as a statutory right. Yeah, so there are certain disqualification for bonus, like if the employee is involved in fraud or riotous or violent behavior or theft or misappropriation, sabotage of any property, and newly added conviction for sexual harassment. So if he's guilty of sexual harassment, then he becomes disqualified to get the bonus. So these are called disqualification for bonus. Very important provision, responsible for payment of bonus. So if contractor fails to pay minimum bonus of 8.30%, here the principal employer, you being a principal employer, you shall pay minimum bonus to the contractual employees. So again, law is not making any difference between regular employee and contract employee. So earlier this response was not on the head of principal employer, but by way of this section 26, you can be made liable to pay at least minimum bonus to the contractual employees. Yeah. Now payment of dues and claims. So dues means amount payable to the employees in the form of salary, bonus, incentives, leave encashment, gratuity. These are nothing but the dues and claims under the code on wages. So every employer shall pay this amount to be paid under code to employed by him. So this is a primary responsibility of all the employer. And payment of undistributed dues in case of death or on account of his whereabouts not being known. So I'll explain the process you can see on the slide. Suppose now by enforcement of this act, every employee has to make nomination under the code on wages, like to whom the amount shall be paid the event of his death or where his whereabouts is not known. So they have mentioned that the nomination shall be in the favor of spouse or in the preference of spouse and some other family member. So that is the prerogative of or privilege given to the employee. He can nominate his spouse and any family member. But if nomination is not made by the employee, then after 3 months, the amount will be deposited with the Labor Commissioner Office. Then the Labor Commissioner Office will identify the nominees or the legal heir of the concerned deceased employee, and they will make the payment accordingly. This is one part. Number two, if the nomination is not made or for some other reason, if he cannot make the payment of these dues, then after 6 months, this amount will be again deposited with the Deputy Chief Labor Commissioner, and they will publish notice in the newspaper, and after that they will distribute the amount to the eligible legal heir of the deceased employee. So government has initiated the process to appoint the authorities to hear and determine the claim of the employees. And if you fail to make these dues, so there is a penalty of 50,000 rupees plus government will recover this amount as an area of land revenue. So these are the certain provisions to make payment to the employee. So living employees, current employees, you can make payment as per the process of the law. If you are making payment to the nominees, we have to follow this process. So here there's a compliance involved here that we have to take nomination from all the employees in the prescribed form, and we have to preserve this form. And in case of death of the employee, or if he's not there, his whereabouts is not known, then we can make payment to the nominees mentioned in the nomination form. And we have to preserve this form permanently to settle the dues and claims of the employees or their legal heirs. Now, what is the compliance under this code? If you can see, every employer the establishment we could apply shall maintain. So we have to maintain employer registration form. So in central rules, they have maintained this form, like form 1 is an employee register. Then we have to make a register of wages, overtime, advances, fine, deduction for damage and loss. So whatever deduction we have seen, we have to record all the deductions in the form 4. Then we have to maintain attendance register cum muster roll in form 9. So these are the compliances under the code on wages. There are other compliance, like we have to display the abstracts of the code. Then we have to display category wise wage rate of the employee, like skill, highly skilled, semi-skilled. Then the wage period, day and date and time of payment of wages shall be displayed on the notice board or on the intranet of the company. And very importantly, the name and address of the inspector cum facilitator having jurisdiction. So different officer will be appointed for different areas. So we have to see who is our inspector cum facilitator. His name and address shall be displayed on the notice. So why this is important? Because you should know what is the provisions of the code, in which category you are falling, what is your wage period, when you will get the payment, and if there is a complaint, to whom should approach to redressal of your grievances. Then every employer shall issue wage slips in form 5 to the employees. Again, so wage slip, payment slip shall be in the form 5, shall be issued before 7th day of the next month. The provision will not be applicable to the employer who are engaging less than 5 employees for agriculture and domestic purpose. Again, but they have to produce the record for payment of wages to the person so employed. And last point will be, all such registers shall be maintained for a period of 5 years from the last entry made therein. So these are the compliances in the form of records, returns, and notices that to be maintained by the every employer. So in simple word, code on wages is applicable to all the employer who is engaging more than 5 employees. As I mentioned in my earlier remark, like the penalties are on higher side. So for non-payment of dues, the fine is 50,000. For second and offense, fine is 1 lakh rupees. Contravention of any other provision, fine is 20,000 rupees. Non-maintenance of record, fine is 20,000 rupees. So you can authorize any person to ensure compliance under the code. So that person will be held responsible for non-compliances under the code on wages. Limitation period is increased. Now employee can approach the government authorities within 3 years. Suppose he is not get wages, he is not received gratuity, he is not received leave encashment, or he is illegally terminated, he can approach within 3 years from the incidents occurred. to the authorities. Earlier, the date was 6 months to 2 years. Now they have given larger period or more period to the employees to redress their grievances. So this will provide more time to protect their statutory rights under the Code on Wages. Contracting out, this is not allowed. So any contract agreement which relinquishes the right of any employee, like to get minimum wages or to get minimum bonus, so that is invalid or void ab initio under the Act. Yes, before imposing any fine or penalties, you'll get an opportunity of being heard, being an employer, and you will get an opportunity to put forward your points, to explain to justify your non-compliances. Then they will, you can go for compounding, and that is possible by paying 50% of the maximum fees. Inspection schemes, as I mentioned, the inspection audits, will be now web-based. So they will call for information over email. You have to submit all the documents over email. They will scrutinize your documents and they'll ask for the additional information, or they will take the appropriate action accordingly. Yeah. As mentioned by Mr. Venkatraman earlier, this code is having overriding effect. So the provision of the code are, so anything contained inconsistent with the code will prevail over the other contractor service agreement or settlement. So Payment of Wages Act, Minimum Wages Act, Payment of Bonus Act, Equalization Act are now repealed from 21st November 2025. So notwithstanding such repeal, anything done or any action taken under this act will repeal, protect the extent not contrary to the code. Compounding, as I will explain, timely payment to, as I mentioned, suppose you are engaging a contractor. Now you have to make payment to the contractor before 5th or before that, so that he will make timely payment to his contractual employees. So now you cannot make payment to contractual employees on 7th. Suppose you make a payment 7th, then there will be a problem. So make timely payment to your vendor, so that your vendor can in turn make payment to their employees. Otherwise, there will be default on the part of principal employer. So what is the impact of this code? As you see, the code is having impact on balance sheet because the CTC will increase, the wage concept has changed, the gratuity provision, for example, will be increased, because earlier we have to have gratuity provision on 40%, 30% of basic. Now it is more than 50% of your basic. So it will impact provisions, actual valuations, leave encashment. So all statutory payments getting affected by the impact of wage difference. So many companies, listed companies, not listed companies, they already judge the impact of this code and they already make provisions in their balance sheet. So please remember, designing CTC is not a mechanical, it requires scenario analysis. So I given few examples, but each case will be different. There is no straight jacket formula. So you have to assess your manpower, you have to assess your industry, you have to assess the geography, the skill set of your employees, and accordingly you have to structure your CTC. As I mentioned, gratuity and leave liabilities will change because they want to give more statutory or social benefit to the employees. So, the gratuity cost or the leave liabilities will be on higher side. So this is the teamwork, HR, legal advisor, finance team, they have to sit together, actuarial, for example, and they have to assess the impact of the code or changes in the labor code, and accordingly they have to design the compensation and benefit policy. So cost of compliance will, because as I seen, there are only three, four registers we have to maintain under the code on wages. Earlier, we have list of different register returns are maintained under various different laws. So the burden will be reduced. As certainly they are easing the ease of doing business. So that will certainly create more opportunities in the market. Way forward. So please remember, the code will be applicable to all establishments, small, medium, and large, even to the unorganized sector employees. Rules are yet to be published. Few governments, they have already published the rules, but again, few state government, they are in process to notify their rules. So once they are, notify the rules, we can full-fledgedly implement the code on wages. So there is an introduction of web-based inspection and self-declaration certification scheme. So like, we can self-certify our compliances. That is also possible under the code. There will be a challenge for the corporate companies which are having offices in more than one state, because different minimum wage rates are there. State may make some certain rules which may have to follow. So that will be depend if you're having operating in more than one state. Government to a strong process to resolve the complaint. Already the process initiated, because employees, as the code is open to all employees, many employees have no approach government labor officer for non-receipt of payment, non-receipt of gratuity, non-receipt of pater benefits, so on and so forth. So government has to roll up their sleeves, because there will be more and more concern will be expressed by the employees. And as we have consolidated the law, so the sections are clubbed into various provisions. So there is the compliance burden certainly reduced. There's ease of compliances. So this will promote more enterprise to create more employment in the India, right? Yes. So this is all from my side. Now we can take up question and answer. Thank you. Thank you for your patient hearing.
Sir, it is a very wonderful presentation, sir. It's a very detailed presentation, so much informative. I'm already getting messages that, they want the presentation as well as the presentation, appreciating the presentation very well.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Lot of FAQs you have already covered, sir, but
Yes.
still, there are some questions coming up from member side. One of the question is, sir, can we pay the employees statutory bonus in monthly CTC structure itself?
We can do that, but there will be challenge, because it will be part of contract of employment, and it will not be considered as exclusion of wages. So if you see the definition given under the code on wages, if it is a part of contract of employment, it is not the exclusion. So I do not suggest that.
So it will be going as a excluding item, sir.
No, it will not be. If you are paying on monthly basis, it will not be excluded.
Oh, okay.
Because if you see the wording, any bonus payable under any law for an in force which does not form part of the remuneration payable under the terms of employment.
Okay.
So there will be a problem. There will be a problem.
Okay. And you have given in your table that, when the amount is revised to higher side, but now if we reduce the basic, like earlier 60%, now it is 50%, what will be the impact?
Sir, we are not supposed to reduce the wages. Okay, so there is a one section called section 124 in code on wages, code on social security, which says that we cannot reduce the salary of the employees in order to comply with the provisions of the code. So that is not allowed.
Basic we cannot be allowed to change at all.
No, we cannot change now.
Oh.
See, change is allowed only in the case of there's a default or demotion or some action is taken against the employee. Then only we can reduce the basic. We are always keep the basic minimum basic, or we can pay higher than that, but we cannot reduce it.
Okay. Another question is, when the working hours is like 8 hours a day, and company will give like 9:30 to 6:30, it already 9 hours a day, and where it will give like 1 hour lunch break. Whether that 8 hours plus 1 hour lunch break is part of it, or 8 hours including lunch break?
8 hours including lunch break.
Oh, so it will be so lunch break time is not restricted to half an hour or 1 hour, whatever it is.
Yes. So many companies, they do 30 minutes for lunch break and 2 break of 40 break or snacks break of 15 minutes in the morning and in the post lunch session. So this is how the breaks are divided.
Now the gratuity is payable only on basic, sir, as per revised definition. Then how the gratuity is to be calculated?
It will be calculated on last on basic. And as I mentioned in my presentation, if any allowance is paid universally, necessarily, ordinarily to all the employees, that is not allowance, that will be considered as basic. For example, special allowance. leave travel allowance. Any allowance you are paying, a fixed amount you pay to all the employees, that will be considered for definition of for computation of gratuity.
Yeah, what happens if the person is leaving in the current year or it is leaving in the next year? He's partially for the older law for some
No, no,
period
no,
and newer
no.
law
Last
for
round
some.
basic. They have used the concept of last round basic. So now 50% basic we have to consider.
So gratuity is for 50%,
Yes,
even under old employee,
yes,
old
yes, yes,
contract or new contract.
yes, yes.
So
Yes,
accordingly, we
true.
have to count for like if he worked for 3 years and leaving because now 1 year only it is a time period for payment of gratuity.
No, sir, no, sir. Let me explain over here
Ah,
because there's a lot of confusion over here. 1 year criteria is only for fixed term contract. Now, what is fixed term contract? Employees engaged with end date of contract. For example, employees engaged for 2 years.
hmm.
Okay. So only that person is eligible for gratuity after 1 year.
Okay.
Regular employees, they have to put 5 year service, 5 year continuous service to become eligible for gratuity.
Very nice, sir. Because there is a lot of confusion. Everybody is
Yeah,
thinking
yeah,
that
yeah.
way
No,
only.
sir. There is no part on the fault of employee because media, newspaper, they have given advertisement to this provision in a wrong way, creating impact that if I put 1 year, I will get a gratuity. That is not the fact. It is
Okay.
only for person with fixed term contract.
Thank you, sir. Another one is under section 5 of the code, the wages, which says that about payment of minimum rate of wages. And the employer shall pay minimum rate of wages as notified by the appropriate government. In such case, what should be the standard minimum rate of wage? Because the central law will say some minimum wage and state law will say some minimum wage.
Yes.
Uh,
So whichever is higher that you have to pay.
oh,
Whichever is higher, I explained during my presentation. So whichever is higher that you have to pay. For example, central has decided 18,000 and you have decided 16,000. You have to pay 18,000.
okay.
Huh.
But state law will not prevail, being a concurrent list in the this thing. State is also entitled to make its own law.
Yeah, they can make own law, but for as far as minimum wages is concerned, they are not supposed to reduce the wages.
Oh,
So there is a concept of national minimum wage, which will be applicable to whole India.
yeah.
Yeah, but they have not declared the national minimum wage yet. So presently, we are following the current wage defined by the state governments.
Okay. Now the code is applicable from 21st 11, sir. Whether code is applicable to West Bengal or the state which has till date not framed any rules to enforce the code.
It will be applicable to all the states in India. It is applicable to whole India.
All
Okay,
29 states.
from 21st November 2025. Okay, because the substantial law is in place, only the procedural law will be notified very soon. So we should not, stop implementing the process of the code.
Yeah,
But it's an
even
industry practice. Many companies in various part of India, they have started implementing from 1st of April. So at least from 1st of April, we should follow the process of law.
okay. So if anybody wants to restructure the salaries, that 50% rule of exclusion of part of wages, what is the best ideal way of rearranging the salary structure?
As I mentioned, cap basic at 50%, cap other allowances 50%. You know, go by the definition of wage. Do not include allowances ad hocly. Go by the negative list and positive list and design your structure accordingly. Do
Okay.
not assume anything. Do not assume
Okay.
anything. Yeah.
Like an employee contributes 12% of the basic, and now employee wants to contribute lesser amount per month. Since the basic has come down, like 24,000 to 15,000, as you suggested already, 15,000, we can do it.
Yeah.
Uh, Whether we can do that and is it viable?
Yes, it is viable.
Uh,
See, because
Okay.
there is a judgment given by Supreme Court in Marathoda Gramin Bank, wherein they are saying that if you are paying the PF contribution on the threshold limit prescribed under the Act, that is a sufficient compliance under that. What I'm suggesting, we have to take later from the employee that earlier my basic was deducted on actual basic. Now I want to deduct on threshold limit. So that will save us from queries from the PF department.
But in some companies, sir, what they say, your CTC includes the PF contribution and PF of employer only they're deducting. They are not paying employer PF at all. Is it valid one in
It is not
compliance?
valid one, but it's industry practice, and so that if someone challenges, then they will have to answer it. Correct. So form that's a part of CTC. It's a
Okay.
cost to the company.
Okay. One, if company deducts PF and does not submit it to the government, what will be the remedy available for the employees? And
They can approach the PF department and they can file an online complaint by logging their UN. They can file a complaint immediately. There will be action will be taken again because it's a criminal breach of trust.
okay. And if it is a company is already under IBC process, they can even apply for NCLT, this
Yes. They can
as
apply.
interim application and
Please
all.
remember, even in IBC, workmen dues got first preference, as we all
Yes.
aware.
Yeah.
So they will get this payment in the IBC process.
So if the gratuity is allowed as a part of CTC and monthly in-hand salary can be reduced by and for deduction of this gratuity. If the employee leaves before 5 years, whether the gratuity is part of CTC and the gratuity will be payable to the employee then?
No. So
No.
what is written in the city structure that we have to see, but many companies they do this, but they put one line saying that gratuity will be paid only if you put service of 5 years. So if you are rendering service of less than 5 years, you are not eligible for gratuity.
I think you have answered this, but I still want to cross-check whether the contract laborers falling under the fixed employee are falling under the fixed employee category.
Fixed term employee, I got this query on WhatsApp. Okay. See, the fixed term employee can be engaged in core activities of the company, no problem. But contract labor cannot be engaged in core activities of the company.
But whether he will be treated as fixed employee then,
Yes.
non-core activity.
Yes, he will be the fixed term employee.
Okay. And now the responsibility lies on both the immediate
Yes,
employer and the principal employer.
yes.
Okay. Whether domestics like sweepers, ladies who works for 1 or 2 hours per day will get about these fixed term employees like
No,
maids and all.
no.
Some
They are
question they
casual
are
employees.
putting
They are casual employees.
casual employees, no?
Yeah,
So if a state has not accepted the wage code, are the companies are still required to follow the same criteria?
of course.
Okay, sir. So what will be the consequences if a company do not make a salary structure compliant with the provision like don't make 50% of wage of total salary?
There is a violation of code on the wages, and they'll be penalized accordingly. If someone approaches this inspector come facilitator appointed in the respective state, you know, there will be penalties will be imposed on the employer.
Oh, so in the compounding, sir, I just want to ask one more time.
Yes,
Whether
sir.
whether the compounding, if it is under the Companies Act, the compounding is not amounting to the conviction, and
Yeah.
where the violation at Schedule 5, because why I am asking this question is now the definition of employer is increased. Even the managing director is brought into
Yeah.
the definition now,
Yeah.
key managerial personnel. Now in this situation, whether the compounding under this act will amount to conviction or it is a not amount to conviction because
It will not amount to conviction because we are not paying fines, we are paying confounding fees. So
yeah,
here the authority is giving us chance because the as per the provisions, it's called composition of offense. Okay.
yeah,
So they're
but
giving chance, yeah, they're giving opportunity of being heard. And
only the worry is, sir, the labor commissioners has to
mm,
be apprised that when they are passing the order, they should not use the word fine in the order. They should use
correct,
only the word compounding fees in the order, like
correct.
NT and regional director does.
Uh, uh,
Otherwise, if they use the word fine, then it is gone case, sir.
Correct. They have to use
Another one, sir, whether employee align with the, whether all the employee agreements, whatever earlier entered, should again redrafted and realigned to the existing wage codes, or they can continue with the old agreements
they
only.
can continue with the code, but they have to issue one letter to all the employees where there is a change. For example, there will change in exit policies. There will change on the compensation benefit policies. So many companies, what they did, they issued a separate letter to their employees saying what is the impact of wage code. So only they are issuing such letter. Other condition will be remain unchanged.
Okay. So on implementation of this, sir, whether the like compliance cost or the load on the wage payouts are increased, hopefully for the companies, many companies.
No, sir, I don't see because many companies they have managed the CTC. There is no change in the take-home salary. They are just managing their CTC. Okay. So
Hmm.
as there will be impact certainly on the gratuity provision, but there is no much impact, cost impact of this wage structure. But we have to see the provisions and seek professional help while doing the restructuring of the salaries. Otherwise, there will be a non-compliance.
Because the numbers in bonus and others have a little bit varied, no, sir, from the previous
Yes,
year to
yes,
now.
yes, yes, yes.
So they will readjust the
Correct.
payment criteria and the
Yeah.
components. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So how can employers ensure the compliance where the employees are working on remotely and multiple areas across India? Because like Reliance in retail is there, they have stores all over India.
I know, I know. See,
Yeah.
here for them the complaint state from where their pay salary is processed. For example, the payroll is processed from Mumbai, for example, or Delhi. So
Hmm.
they have to ensure the compliance of Delhi. Suppose they are having offices in the respective state, then we have to follow the state law as well.
Okay.
But there is no concept of remote working place or work from home in the in the labor codes.
Because now the Modi ji has announced work from
Yes,
home concept.
yes, yes.
So how to
Yeah, to minimize the cost,
uh,
to optimally use the resources.
uh,
Mr. Modi has suggested this.
yeah, now, another one is what key areas should compliance officers as company secretaries as compliance officers should focus, especially on either in conducting of internal labor law audits under new regime.
Yeah.
Uh,
So he has to
other,
focus on 5 points, sir.
uh,
First, whether the concerned companies obtain all the registration. Now, as per this new wage code, we have to obtain new number of social security.
okay,
Like now the PF and SSC will be merged into one number. So
okay,
we have to obtain fresh registration under the new labor codes.
okay,
Whether he has obtained all these new registration. Number two, whether he is maintaining all the new register prescribed under the labor code.
hmm,
Whether he is filing all the returns prescribed under the new labor code.
hmm,
Whether there is a display which is proper under the new labor code and whether the intimation has been given. So registration, registers, returns, display of notices, and intimation to labor authorities. These are the 5 areas where the company secretary or compliance officer shall focus while conducting this internal or external audit, as the case may be.
so as per your this thing, are there any directly like we have tools for either AI tools or the softwares which
Yeah.
provides for compliance management? Whether any suggestible software which can be used by the companies?
No, sir. These software making company, they are still waiting for the state rules to come. So once these rules are in place, they will develop one and that can be usable. But yes, they are going to come in the market and we have to make use of it because we are into AI technology now. So we have to make use of technology.
Because otherwise it
Yeah,
will be huge Hercules, clerical work on the record maintenance and all.
correct, sir.
At
Correct,
every factory, at every establishment they set up.
correct, sir.
Then, sir, is it overtime is applicable for both employees and workers under this wage code? Or earlier it was only for workers, but now the definition is increased in such a wider way.
Yeah, it is applicable to employees and worker. It is typically not applicable to the employee who work in managerial categories because
Okay.
they are already getting the hefty salaries.
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
So worker definitely covered. Staff who is not manager or supervisor is also covered. You know. So these categories of employees are covered by the bonus. Sorry, overtime.
So this In case of fixed term employee employed only for 1 year, then again engaged for another year and so on with revised letters, how he will be treated as to
See, the
avoid.
intention of fixed term contract that you needed the service only for limited period. If
Hmm,
you are again renewing that contract again and again, that is will be considered as unfair labor practice.
okay.
But if you are
Well,
renewing the contract again and again, that is not allowed by the law. You have to hire an employee as a regular employee.
is there any formal violation of provision of law, sir, or
Yes,
it
yes,
will
yes,
be
yes, yes.
okay? When the definition of wages be determined, since the floor wage or minimum rate of wages have not been notified by many of the state governments, and what will be the applicable ceiling limit for payment of bonus in such cases?
Sir, as of now, we can calculate the bonus on 21,000, which is made in the earlier laws, because it's not considered in the law. And if the minimum wages are not declared, we can still follow the state minimum wages declared by the government.
Okay. Now, sir, how the startups or MSMEs effectively comply with digital wage payment and record keeping requirements of wage code?
As I mentioned, sir, the record and returns are already reduced. So they can make, as I mentioned, they can make use of some software which is cost effective and ensure the non-compliance under the act. Because see, the penalties are, we have seen in the early side, the penalties are very higher side. It is minimum 10,000, maximum 1,000 for violation. So better to invest in cost of compliance rather than to pay penalties and fine.
One question is coming, sir, like equal remuneration and non-discrimination to be addressed,
Mhm.
especially when the establishments are available in pan India, each states, and the cost at different cities and different like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 will be
Mhm.
different. So whether it is justified that equal remuneration across India, irrespective of the cost of living there.
No, so they have used the concept of similar work or work of similar nature. So if your
Okay.
qualification experience is different, certainly you will pay different wages.
No,
But if they are,
qualification experience is okay, sir, but place of working.
yes, that will. So for example, Pune and Mumbai, for example, Pune and Delhi, for example, any state,
Hmm.
so that will be different. But in the same organization, if you're having male and female employee having same expertise, you cannot discriminate among them. That is, they are branding gender parity.
So it means that the persons who are working in one establishment, in Nagpur, and one employee who is working in a very remote, like Latur
Hmm.
district, the payment of employees working in the Latur factory can be equal, and then it can be different from the persons who are working in
Yes,
Pune and
yes, yes,
Mumbai.
because their geographic is same. They are not working under same working condition or
Okay.
similar working conditions. So already they have defined what is similar work and what is a work of similar nature.
Okay. What will be the impact of wage restructuring on existing non-ESI employees? Whether restructuring of salary components on wage code could bring the
Yeah,
employees currently outside the CSI coverage?
they will be brought into the SSC coverage and more people will be covered and the cost will be increased because more people will in the bracket of ESIC now, right?
And because ESI normally has the establishment of hospitals at one place and there's clinics at different locations.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. For hospital, they have come out, hospital education, they have come out with the notices like that is applicable. But now that circle is kept on hold. So soon they will declare what is the status of education hospital. But barring this, uh, any employee whose basic is less than 21,000 shall be covered under the ACC Act.
Okay. So how to deal with the retirement benefits in case of employee leaving job after 2 years, sir? Uh,
So his retirement benefits will be provident fund, pension. See, provident fund can be transferred or withdrawn. Pension will be applicable if he has served as a PF member for 10 years or more. Gratuity is not applicable, but he'll entitled for leave encashment and earned wages. That's it.
One practical question, sir. Some of the employees normally what without having no proper knowledge, one company will open one PF account number, another company will open another PF account number when they migrate shift to other company. When these two accounts are there, PF account with numbers, actually that should be one migrated to the next entity.
Hmm.
So if they are having like different multiple accounts, whether that can be merged in one single account at a
Yes, yes,
later stage.
yes, that can be letter. That can be merged.
Okay.
That can be merged, yes. So there, if there's integrity of finance, arbitration, and control,
Hmm.
we cannot have more entities that can be clubbed into one.
Yeah. So for workers who are on monthly wage, employees who are asked to work on rest day, and then they are given a substitute off with the wages. Whether still they are required to pay overtime and for the rest day also.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
So there is no point in providing a compensatory holiday to them.
No, that has to be provided. Still, he's entitled for overtime payment.
Oh, so both ways it will be beneficial.
Yeah. See, these provisions are still there in state laws, but no one is following that. That is the problem.
And the rules speaks now only about 48 hours work per a week.
Huh.
Does it mean if we can ask the workers to work more than 8 hours in a shift without paying OT? And ensures that only 48 hours work is provided to them.
That
Will
is
they live
possible.
in
See, you have
compliance?
to, yeah, that is possible. You have to ask employee to work on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Hmm.
So hours will be 48 hours.
Hmm.
And he has to give holiday on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So employee can work 12 hours per day from Monday to Thursday, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday can be holidays.
Even 9 hours they can work without
Yeah,
paying
12
overtime.
hours they can work without routine, no problem, because it total weekly hours cannot be more than 40.
Okay. Overtime is based on that 48 hours bracket, not on 8
Yes,
hours bracket.
yes.
Although the OSH, this act, code mentions only workers, it is applicable to other employees, not only for workers, but also it is applicable to other employees for calculation of gratuity under old draft rules. There are some exclusions like telephone reimbursement, medical reimbursement, etc. Whether they are to be excluded as wages under the new regime also.
Yes, they have to be excluded because in the new final rules, which are published on 8th May, they have removed these provisions.
Okay. Whether this paternity leave and maternity leave payments for some days, we need to pay minimum this thing amounts. Whether it is applicable under old act and new act is same.
New act. Paternity leave is not there in India. Maternity leave is there. Now maternity has to be paid on basic.
Paid on basic only.
Yeah.
So that basic, whatever we make now changes, it will
Yes.
impact that outflow also.
Yes.
I think there are no questions, sir. One last this thing. Is the EPF Act 1952 is not obligated, and can the PF contribution continue to be deducted and the old basic
Yes.
and
No,
not at
not
the
old basic.
enhanced?
Not old basic, new basic. If you are doing on actual basic, or
Hmm.
as I mentioned, follow the threshold limit.
Okay. I think there are no other questions, sir. We are done with. Any other suggestions, sir? At the end, you want to give it to
Uh,
uh,
I want to,
our company secretary's fraternity because
yeah.
now
As I
the
mentioned, the scope is very huge because as I mentioned, the act is applicable to all establishment having 5 or more employees.
Hmm,
And the compliance, has to be ensured because the penalties on heavy side. So industries has no option but to comply with the law. So we
hmm,
can explore this as an area, for supporting our existing customer or new customer. So this can be a good area of practice. I am practicing in labor law from 2011 when this old laws was there. still I'm doing practice in this. So there are need in the industry that they want professionals who will support, you know, compliance under this new labor code. Number one. Number two, we have to interpret the law in a such a way that it will be helpful for both the parties, like employer and employee, because we have to see both the sides are very important to run the industry, employer as employee. So we have to make an interpretation or give a solution to our customer which will fulfill the law at the same time it will meet the expectations of the employer as well. And we have to see the intention of lawmaker, why the gratuity limit has brought down, why the ESI limit has brought down, because they want to increase social security to all the employees. So keeping in view the intention of lawmaker, the compliance will be more easy. These are my concluding remarks.
And sir, one thing I was, even under the old Companies Act, से लेके अब तक we are, really under a doubt because regarding the MD's appointment, whether MD is a employer relation is there, or will be treated as employee, will be payroll, whether gratuity is to be payable. Because there are some case laws also where it says it's a 5 years appointment, it is not a permanent appointment. So employer employee contract for employment, contract of employment concept was there. So
Yeah.
how it will impact here?
So if it's a contract of services, then he will be covered by the gratuity act. See, we should go by the nature of duties, not by the designation. Simple. Whether it is a managing director or any other employee, we have to go by the nature of duties performed by the concerned employee. And if he's providing services under contract of services, then certainly he's an employee of the company and is entitled to all the benefits, including gratuity and product.
So in the documentation, when we make appointment like board resolution or agreement, what you suggest, whether it is contract for employment or contract of employment, the better way to draft?
Contract of employment.
Contract of employment to
Yes.
make it applicable for the gratuity and all.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Because he's a whole-time employment with the company. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No. Managing director need not be, sir. Whole-time director will be in whole-time employment.
Correct. But if he's the managing director, he's providing services to various other companies, then it should be contract for services.
Contract for
But if he's whole-time in that particular company,
whole-time director, executive director will be contract of employment.
But if managing director is a managing director for 2 or 3 companies, for example, or
Yes.
CEO for 2 or 3, then there will be concept of contract for services.
Okay. But still there is no harm if the company wants to pay the gratuity.
Yeah. It is for their betterment.
Yeah, because sometimes there will be contractual. The demand of the person will be such a high that he will ask for everything.
Yeah.
Very wonderful, sir. You have answered all the queries. Whatever, even I got whatever my mind, some out of my experience. Those questions also I tried to pose because even others will get benefit out of it. It was a really very very interactive and very very detailed presentation, and we learned a lot about the labor law.
Yes,
Only thing is, members, I request all of you to please take this labor law also is one of your wing to practice if you are into practice. If you are really in employment, please take this as a challenging task because many of the employees today are the risk officers also, chief risk officers and compliance officers. So we cannot ignore this labor law aspects, and especially ESG reporting is applicable for now 1,000 plus top 1,000 companies, and it will be going to come for many other companies also in future. And as a company secretaries, we should be encroaching to different multiple portfolios, because after the artificial intelligence and come up, where the company is having a large number of routine works, all will be taken care of by AI. So it is now time for us to, expand to new areas, emerging areas. So, like, sir, we'll be having many more sessions under the Triple E, like Sandeep sir, for interacting on the labor law concepts and learning on the labor law concepts. And we are going to make better compliance in the corporates where we work. So thank you very much, sir. Really wonderful
Thank you.
interaction with you. I also thank Surbhi ji and also the HQ team who are supporting for this Triple E program and assisting the
Thank you,
IT
sir.
team
Thank you for
also.
the insightful session.
Yeah, madam,
Yes.
anything you want to say?
So I'm just saying thank you for the insightful session and thank you you for moderating the session so smoothly. And
Thank
it
you,
was
madam.
very knowledgeable and thank you so much for
Madam,
thank
people
you.
are asking presentation. I got already some messages.
Yes,
Please
sir.
I will give.
request him for the presentation.
So
I will.
please share the presentation and we'll share.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you,
you so much,
everyone.
sir. We will catch up
Thank
in
you.
some or other program. Thank you,
Yes, sir.
everybody. Thank you, all participants, for patience listening.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.